Hi, welcome to part three of my interview with Caroline Saunders, a family lawyer. My name is Soila, founder and editor of the divorcemagazine.co.uk, and you can find a lot more interviews and videos on the divorcemagazine.co.uk and on our YouTube channel, also under the divorcemagazine.co.uk. We've had two interviews, we've had two parts to this interview, prior parts to this interview. And the first one was about the financial order, which is a huge deal.
Yes.
So please, if you haven't listened to that part one, go back and listen to part one. I promise you there's something that you will learn there. And then the second part, we've looked at how to divorce and the different grounds of divorce that are, there's one ground of divorce, which you said is the marriage has,
Irretrievable breakdown.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that is then split into five. So go into part two of the interview, find out what the grounds of divorce are, and also, most importantly, find out how Caroline can help you with your divorce process, because they're divorce papers that need to be filled in. They're very complicated, and you don't want to waste time filling them in, sending them off only for them to be rejected. Always ask somebody for assistance in that area, and Caroline can be there to help you. So Caroline, now this part here, I'd like us to probably focus a little bit more on how to divorce
Surely.
and the forms that you have mentioned before,
Sure.
and
Yes.
just so people can know which forms to be aware of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you go onto the government website, that's where you can actually download the divorce forms. And you need to decide before you start the process, and hopefully to discuss with your husband or your wife, because it's best to try and deal with this by agreement so that you have an amicable divorce wherever
Yes.
possible.
Yes.
Obviously, it's not always possible. The basis for your divorce. And yes, the marriage may have broken down irretrievably, but sometimes there may not be unreasonable behaviour,
Yeah.
and there may not be adultery. So you then have to decide whether you're prepared to wait for the fact that you've been separated for a period of 2 years. Um, the forms are, as you said, quite complicated. There are explanatory notes provided by the court service, but again, even for lawyers, they're not always easy to follow, and they do use legal jargon. For example, towards the back of the application for the divorce, which we call a petition, again, old-fashioned language,
Okay.
there's a prayer,
Oh,
and clients will say, "Well, I'm not religious. What am I praying for?" And it
what is it? I'm
I know.
curious now.
Yeah, and so you're praying for a divorce. Why?
Wow.
It's old-fashioned language.
Okay. All right.
And there's also tick boxes in there when you're claiming for a financial order. And again, this is very confusing for clients because they think, well, I don't want a financial order, and so I shouldn't tick that. But as we've discussed in part one,
Yes.
you do need to have a financial order, even if there's nothing for you at this time to have made. It's imperative you have your clean break order. So it's really necessary that you tick the right boxes on the divorce form.
Gosh, I can't remember what I ticked now. Better go have a look.
So there's a court fee payable of £410
Yes.
until it goes up again. And you need to provide your marriage certificate. And then the process will take between 5 to 6 months.
Yes.
And it's a paperwork exercise. It can take longer if one party doesn't cooperate, or if you get the forms wrong and the court sends them back again to you again.
Yes. And
So that's the process.
what is the Form E?
Form E is a horrible form, and it's sort of between 25 to 30 pages long. And it's a bit like an income tax
Oh my God.
form, but it's a form that you have to complete in relation to financial proceedings. So if you're going through financial proceedings relating to your divorce or ending of your civil partnership, you have to provide full details of your personal and financial circumstances and to provide lots of supporting financial documents that go with it.
Okay.
So, but that would relate to any financial proceedings.
Do you help complete the Form E?
I don't. That's not part of my
Okay.
service. But if you were going through the mediation process,
Yes,
you
that's
would
true.
complete a Form E,
Yeah.
because going through mediation, your mediator needs to be sure that you come to the mediation table with all of your financial cards
That's right.
on the table,
Yeah.
so that the husband and wife know exactly what the other has got, and that's really important. And we call that financial disclosure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I was drafting your financial order, I would need to make sure that I have details of both parties' finances, because the court requires a summary of this information,
Yes.
and that's required on what's called a D81. Um,
D81.
D81, and
Okay.
otherwise known as a Statement of Information for a Financial Consent Remedy Order, which is a horrible mouthful. But that form is crucial, because that allows the judge
Yeah.
to look at the proposed order against that form and decide whether that order should be approved or not.
Ah. Okay.
Without that background information, he or she can't decide whether that order is correct.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So that has just been really, really informative. The whole interview, from
Oh, thank you.
the financial order bit where we had in part one, the grounds for divorce and how to get divorced, and the different divorce papers,
Yes.
and divorce forms that are needed,
Yeah.
and also how long the divorce process takes. It's
Sure.
always difficult to tell, because I know people
It is.
where it's taken a long time, but if there's nothing to fight about,
Yes.
5 to 6 months, and
Yeah.
you're done.
Exactly. Sometimes a divorce won't be finalised, where you won't get your decree absolute until the finances have been sorted, because by having your decree absolute, you're no longer husband and wife. And so
Yes.
if there are pensions involved, it's important that until all of the finances have been resolved, that you don't have your decree absolute. So that's very important too, not to rush on headlong into finalising your divorce until you've sorted out the finances.
Yeah, not to turn around and say, well, I don't want anything more to do with you. Go away. I've
Yes,
filled it in and you're gone.
yes. Very important. But
So,
but
go on.
sorry, I was going to say, ILS, Independent Legal Services, offers this fixed fee for drafting.
Yeah.
And so when you come to us, you're not worried that suddenly you've been quoted X amount and then suddenly you're faced with
Yeah.
a bill
Yeah.
for a much larger amount.
Yeah.
It's a drafting service. I'm not providing legal advice, but when you come to us, you know what you're paying for, and that's it.
Yes.
And if I can't help you, I'll recommend that you go to mediation, or you go and see an experienced family lawyer who's preferably a member of Resolution.
Resolution. Yeah. Okay. So, Caroline, 2 questions. If
Surely.
somebody, what advice would you give anybody right now who's thinking, how to divorce, and how to go about it? What one huge piece of advice would you give them?
Try and do it amicably.
Okay.
Speak to each other. That is so important, particularly with there's children involved. It's
Yeah.
really important that your divorce does not become a war zone,
Because
because
it's
the only people you
possible.
hurt are yourselves and the children.
Yeah, because it's possible to actually have a divorce that is not full of anger and resentment.
Very much. It's so important. And there are very useful sources of information. Your own divorce magazine, of course.
Thank you.
There's also the Resolution website
Website.
that has an awful lot of very helpful, useful information. It's got a parenting after parting section. There's also the CAFCAS
Yes.
website.
True.
The more information you can gather, the better.
Yeah.
But please, if you can, stay friends. That's so important, because you and the children are the ones that will be damaged, not the lawyers,
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
the lawyers,
Yeah.
by an acrimonious divorce.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think one of the things that as parents we can forget is that, yeah, you get your decree absolute, you're then divorced, financial order has been sorted and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's not over, because the children
No.
will go through school, there will be parents' evenings, there will be graduation ceremonies. there will be weddings, there will be christenings, you know,
Yes,
so you will still see each other as
yes.
time goes on.
It's so important to co-parent, to
Yeah.
continue to co-parent, and not to try and exclude one parent, one of
Yeah.
you, from the children's lives,
Yeah.
because as you so rightly say, um, at one point you'll be grandparents
Yes.
and you want to have that relationship with each other where your son or daughter doesn't say, "Oh, I don't know if we can invite mum to our
Exactly.
wedding
Yeah.
or to this because or dad
Yeah.
because that's going to be awkward and
Yeah.
difficult and they're going to fight."
And it's their
That's the
first
worst
grandson's
scenario.
first birthday. You know, it's like
Yes,
it
yes,
just goes on.
yes, yes.
The other question that I have for you is if anyone wanted to get in touch with you when they, you know, for getting their legal documents
Sure.
completed, how can they do that? Where can they reach you?
Yes, by email or through my website, which is almost finished. And the my email address is Caroline at independentlegalservices.info, and my website is all the W's, independentlegalservices.info.
Great. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Oh,
That
it's
was
been a
such a
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm sorry if I've talked too quickly and too
No,
much.
no, you haven't. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Take
All
care.
right. Bye
Bye.
now. Bye.